why? It is a question why simply we are not having a conflict resolution approach in Israel-Palestine conflict. So, conflict resolution approach required a moral capacity to speak truth, and that truth can really offend the sentiment of the people. And why? Because of there are certain reasons why there is no conflict resolution approach in this context. Why? Because the distortion and misinterpretation of history is involved. Global sentiment is involved. Two factors are enough for not having a conflict resolution approach. Marxists think that this is the war which is anti-imperialist from the side of Palestine. And American and imperialist power, they think that we have to protect democracy in this region and protect the rights of Jews. There is misinterpretation of history, and that blocks a resolution approach. So this is a clear example. I will even tell you that this is a clear example where a society which is driven by political, economic, and sentimental interest cannot offer a resolution approach in any society in the world. The only thing which are missing in the conflict resolution approach on Israel and Palestine is missing empathy part and part of the morality and moral reflection. And once you do not have moral reflection on yourself and the involved parties, simply you cannot have resolution approach. And this makes this resolution extremely complex. Why? Because it involves sentiment of the people globally. If take from the Islamic perspective, that for theological reasons, that global Islam or scholars think that they will be uprooting Islam theologically if they give up. And Israeli, they think they are Jews and they are the first inhabitant and fighting for their survival and fighting for their motherland. Palestinians also think they are fighting for their motherland. And there is no problem in this thinking. Simply, there is no problem if Israeli think that they are fighting for motherland and Palestinian think that they are fighting for their motherland. Simply, this is not a problem in terms of conflict resolution. The problem is involvement of global politics. This politics, global politics, has no direction other than interest. So, it is the best example, I will say, Israel-Palestinian conflict is the best example where part of the morality is missing. And once the morality part misses, there cannot simply be a resolution. And to have a morality and have a resolution which can be acceptable, you need leaders to speak truth, irrespective to the fact what sentiment of the people involved outside. So, resolution will offend the sentiment of global society. But who can really offer a conflict resolution? This is actually the question of the representation. This is what you should not involve monkey in the fight of two cats. This is where there cannot be simply a resolution. This is a best example to understand understand the conflict resolution by liberals or the Marxist, or the problem actually where people cannot simply think in terms of resolution. This is a serious problem. It's not I even say that it is not a problem of the Israel-Palestine conflict. It is a problem of that people simply cannot think about resolution. They are unable to think about resolution. And those who think about resolution of a conflict, they have to have that moral capacity. And first, you have to understand that moral capacity. So I will say that even Israel, it's not a problem that Israelis' sentiment is involved. It is also not a problem that Palestinians' sentiment is involved. Historical sentiment, cultural sentiment about their motherland and protecting their homeland. The problem is that the sentiment of outsiders involved. So when the sentiment of outsider involved, there cannot be a resolution. Why? Because outsiders' sentiment will champion and promote and encourage the romanticism and adventurism in that approach. But those who has to suffer in the conflict, actually, they are not allowed to speak. So Palestinians and Israelis are not allowed to think independently. That is the question. If Israelis and Palestinians are allowed to think independently, there will be 100% conflict resolution. Why? Because they are facing conflict and suffering from the conflict. But those who are from outside, they will have too much romanticized, idealistic position on this conflict. This is where, like, you listen very carefully. Many scholars, like Zakir Naik, he is saying that Palestinians has to fight till the time last Jew survive. So such statements are actually unwanted. He himself run from India, for political reasons. So he can leave the country. He can leave his own homeland and do politics outside. So this is where romanticism is. So Zakir Naik leave the country for his own survival. But he will say that Palestinians has to fight till their last breath. And Israeli has to fight till their last breath. And this approach is very easy to take when you are outside the conflict. If you have to face no consequences in the conflict, you simply have this approach that, see, it's not acceptable. You are fighting a global war against imperialism. You are fighting on the behalf of sentiment of global Islam. Ask to the common Palestinians who are suffering. So highly romanticized position will escalate conflict from either of the side. So actually Israelis and Palestinians are not the problem. If they are involved sentimentally in this conflict, there can be resolution. But the sentiment which is involved from outside, from either side, is actually a problem in the conflict resolution. So the only part which is missing in the conflict resolution is missing, that is empathy. So without compassion and empathy, there is no conflict resolution approach. Simply, it is kind a lingering. And modern philosophy or liberal philosophy actually has no resolution. Only there can be a resolution from ethical and moral points of view. There cannot be a resolution from the dominant school of the rights and freedom. Simply, there cannot be a resolution from rights and freedom point of view, or what Marxists think, or what Muslims think. Globally, they are sitting outside and escalating conflict. No, you have to fight till the last breath. Whereas Israel, from the Israel point of view, it is considered they are part of imperialism, global capitalism, and all these things. So these are the narratives. So Israelis and Palestinians, unless they are out of the global narrative which is built, they cannot have a conflict resolution approach. And it's not possible. Why? Because their sentiment is involved, that is fine. There can be resolution. But when sentiment of outsiders involved, then it's not fine. So I will stop here, and it is shocking for me that there is no conflict resolution approach is offered in the Israel-Palestine conflict. And if it is offered, then why it is not acceptable for either of the party? Why? Because of the different reasons, and one of the reason is sentiment of outsiders involved in it. I will stop here. If I have developed some framework which I can offer to any conflict situation as a resolution approach, which can be good and suitable for all the parties, irrespective of the fact that what people think. So having political correctness is also a problem. That is what. So when power involves, there is no resolution. When morality involves, there is resolution. I will stop here. Please, thank you. Please follow and subscribe. I would like to offer you thank you. I request you to follow and subscribe my channel. And